The Claim. 9 radical claims of Jesus that can revolutionize your life. I am the Good Shepherd. How many children are in the show All My Children? Well, that depends on who's speaking. If you mean all the children who love and hate and laugh and cry their way through the popular daytime soap opera by the same name, then only the scriptwriters know for sure how many children all really is. But if those 3 words, all my children, are spoken by the Father of humanity, then all means every one of us. For God has a very big family. A very big and broken family, actually. She was a mother of 2 small children when, at the age of 25, she caught a chill in December. The chill turned to fever, and on January 5th, 1840, Mary Lundy died. The next year, her mother published her daughter's memoirs and included in them one of the 23 hymns young Mary had written. This one a children's prayer that she had composed for her 2 toddlers. Jesus, tender shepherd, hear me. Bless thy little lamb tonight. Through the darkness be thou near me. Watch my sleep till morning light. All this day thy hand has led me, and I thank thee for thy care. Thou hast clothed me, warmed me, and fed me. Listen to my evening prayer. But posthumously, this short and touching hymn became more than a composition for Mary Lundy's 2 children. Before long, it became a good night prayer for children everywhere, who quietly sang its simple words as they drifted off to sleep. Jesus, tender shepherd, hear me. Bless thy little lamb tonight. But come to think of it, hasn't the world known a very similar simple prayer for many centuries longer? A quiet prayer of commitment to the same shepherd. A prayer not only for the end of a day, but a prayer often prayed at the end of a life. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. How many a weary gray head has lain itself down for the last time upon life's pillow, with the words of the old King James Psalm 23 upon the lips. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. There was something mystical and sacred about that long ago psalm, wasn't there? Once upon a time, it was very reassuring to know that the Lord is my shepherd. But then, once upon a time, it seemed that practically all of God's children knew the shepherd's psalm. But who knows it anymore? After all, the times have changed, haven't they? And an ancient agrarian metaphor no longer speaks to a modern urban society. It makes you wonder, if Jesus could do it all over again, would he call himself something other than the Good Shepherd? That, in fact, is his 6th radical claim in the Gospel of John. I am the Good Shepherd. John chapter 10, verse 11. But maybe today he would declare, I am the good psychotherapist, or I am the good lawyer, or the good policeman. But Good Shepherd? The Good Shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. John chapter 10, verse 11. Could it be that in a world of fragmented relationships, this ancient metaphor still speaks powerfully to our modern plight? Maybe it really is for all my children. In Pioneer Memorial Church, where I pastor, there is a towering stained glass window high above the back of the balcony. It is a stained glass portrait of Jesus, the Good Shepherd. 20 feet high, its translucent colors portray him with 2 sheep bleeding at his side. But in the crook of his arm, he is tenderly holding a quiet and contented lamb. Jesus, tender shepherd, hear me, bless thy little lamb tonight. A portrait of the Good Shepherd framed in the fragments of a stained glass window. But what in the world does that have to do with contemporary life? But then again, maybe that's just it. Could it be that in our broken glass pane, we can find healing in this stained glass portrait for all of us? God's children. Do you know broken glass pane? Let me share with you some of the shards of broken pane that some of the parishioners I pastor, which, by the way, is Latin for shepherd, have shared with me. You may be no stranger to some of this pain yourself. Do you know the broken glass pane of a mother's heart that anguishes over her alcoholic son? But they are hot tears of a desperate love when that mother prays out of a broken glass heart for her one lost child. And all the children in the world can never take her boy's place. Maybe you have cried such tears as well. And what about that workaholic father who too late discovers that all that overtime has meant not enough time with his little girl, a grown-up right now who's run away from home? Then there is the broken glass pane of a wife who mourns her husband's death. Not his physical death, but his death to the love they once shared long ago. Married singles they've become. Do you know that pain? How about the broken glass pane of a university student who has left a home that was only a house for too many years and has a difficult time now forming any lasting relationships? If you don't know real love, how can you show it? Do you know the pain of looking like family but not living like family? Or how about the broken glass pane of a fiancé who mourns the broken covenant of a pledged love, and all the dreams that have come shattering down, and the embarrassment of having to go on? Have you been there too? Or how about the broken glass pane of an unemployed husband and father who sobs in my office as he worries over how he can now provide for his wife and only child? Is that broken glass your own? Have you had to carry the fragments of the broken glass pane of an employee suffers over the sense of rejection and failure that a pink-slipped dismissal notice has brought? Fired, no good. Now where? The broken glass pane of breakups and breakdowns, of headaches and heartaches, of dysfunctions and despair. For my village is a microcosm of the world, your world and mine. Let's face it, we live in a world where too often the glittering reflection that we see is nothing more than the glaring light of another day reflected off the shards of our own broken pane. We all live in the fragmented world of broken glass pane. But could it be that for such pain there is this stained glass portrait? I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand, who is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep, sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and runs away, and the wolf snatches them and scatters them. The hired hand runs away because the hired hand does not care for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me, and I lay down my life for the sheep. John chapter 10, verses 11 to 15. Did you catch that? The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. Verse 11. But what could that possibly mean? Because, forgive me for being so blunt, doesn't it seem a bit odd and strange to you too, this notion of a human being dying for an animal? British screenwriter and director Duncan Evans started out a lucky man that fateful November 2nd. That was the day the orange sea of fire swept up the hill to his posh, rented cottage in Malibu, California, during the recent devastating firestorms. But Duncan Evans was ahead of the fire and managed to flee his cottage before it became engulfed in flames. A fortunate man, this film director whose credits included the movies Fire with Fire and Third Degree Burn. But his good fortune turned to tragedy when he realized that his pet Siamese cat was not with him. So he raced back into the burning cottage to find his beloved pet. But he succumbed to the flames, and a day later he died from his burns. His pet cat, it was later found alive with only its paws and ears burned. Think about it, though. As heroic as it was, this act of a human dying in his attempt to save an animal, does it seem right? I mean, the cost of the sacrifice far exceeded the value of the animal being saved, whether you're a cat lover or not, didn't it? I was conducting a graveside service at the Rose Hill Cemetery here in our university town when one of those in attendance pointed out to me the nearby gravestone of a university professor. And there I was reminded of the story I'd heard when we moved to this parish over a decade ago. It was the story of a family out on a wind-swept jetty near St. Joseph, Michigan. Their dog fell into the churning waters of Lake Michigan, and the professor instinctively jumped in to save the pet, but tragically in the process he drowned. I stood for a moment beside his gravestone, and as I stood there, another man who died valiantly, trying to save his pet, was on my mind. As I reflect on these two deaths, I wonder whether the film director and the university professor would have made such saving efforts had they known the incalculable price that they would end up paying in order to save their animals. The cost of the sacrifice far exceeds the value of the animal that was saved, doesn't it? Would you give your life for an animal? If you were a Palestinian shepherd, then the answer is yes, because just like the two brave and compassionate men above, shepherds have been known to lay down their lives for their sheep. I read of one such incident regarding a Palestinian shepherd grazing his flock between Tiberias and Tabor in northern Galilee. It was springtime, and as the shepherd led his sheep through the pasture land, 3 Bedouin thieves jumped him in an effort to steal from his flock. But rather than fleeing his attackers, the shepherd stood his ground and fought back with his staff. However, armed with their sharp daggers, the thieves ended up hacking the shepherd to death. He died among the sheep he was defending. Well, I can only say bravo again, but again I must confess that it seems to me the cost of the sacrifice far exceeded the value of the animal saved, whether you're a sheep lover or not. So, what did Jesus mean when he declared, "I am the good shepherd"? The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. Does he speak of animals, or does he mean all of his children? A few weeks later, Christ gave the answer when he spoke the immortal words, "No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. I have called you friends." John chapter 15, verses 13 and 15. Not a shepherd dying for his sheep here, but rather a friend laying down his life for his friends. In less than 24 hours after he spoke those words, Jesus was dead on a Roman cross. There and then, the truth was seen that to lay down one's life is the supreme gift of undying, unrelenting, unconditional love. But the question repeats itself. Didn't the cost of the sacrifice far exceed the value of what was saved? If you were Jesus, would you die for you or for me? Probably not. For who in his right mind would choose to exchange the spotless life of the Eternal One for the stained, fragmented life of a sinner like you or me? Which is precisely the Bible's most triumphant point. The cost of the sacrifice truly far exceeded the value of that which was saved, which leaves only one word for such a disproportionate exchange: love, divine, self-sacrificing love for God's children. For while we were still weak, at the right time Christ died for the ungodly. Indeed, rarely will anyone die for a righteous person, though perhaps for a good person someone might actually dare to die. But God proves his love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Romans chapter 5, verses 6 to 8. In his classic bestseller, A Shepherd Looks at Psalm 23, Philip Keller powerfully portrays the consequence of the choice God's self-sacrificing love made. God looked down upon sorrowing, struggling, sinning humanity and was moved with compassion for the contrary, sheep-like creatures he had made. In spite of the tremendous personal cost it would entail to himself to deliver them from their dilemma, he chose deliberately to descend and live amongst them, that he might deliver them. This meant laying aside his splendor, his position, his prerogatives as the perfect and faultless one. He knew he would be exposed to terrible privation, to ridicule, to false accusations, to rumor, gossip, and malicious charges that branded him as a glutton, drunkard, friend of sinners, and even an impostor. It entailed losing his reputation. It would involve physical suffering, mental anguish, and spiritual agony. In short, his coming to earth as the Christ, as Jesus of Nazareth, was a straightforward case of utter self-sacrifice that culminated in the cross of Calvary. The laid-down life, the poured-out blood, were the supreme symbols of total selflessness. This was love. This was God. This was divinity in action, delivering men from their own utter selfishness, their own stupidity, their own suicidal instincts as lost sheep, unable to help themselves. Verse 107 and 108. The greatest love a person can have for his friends is to give his life for them. I call you friends. John chapter 15, verses 13 and 15. There is no greater love. Again, this was divinity in action, delivering men from their own utter selfishness, their own stupidity, their own suicidal instincts as lost sheep unable to help themselves. Page 107, from Philip Keller's book. Good news for our broken glass pane, because the friend who laid down his life for us is the friend who can pick up the pieces for us. His own blood-stained broken glass death on Calvary is all the evidence we need to know that he not only experienced the fragmented depths of our own painful shards, but he also earned the right to shepherd our broken lives back into wholeness again. Healing and hope for all my children. Do you know what that means? It means there's no point in your bleeding and bleeding alone in the night. It's time to let the stained glass shepherd heal your broken glass pane. He calls you his friend. He calls you by name. John chapter 10, he calls his own sheep by name. Verse 3, you are more than a sheep to him. You are a friend of his. So why hold your life back? Why hesitate any longer to give your broken glass self to Jesus? Tell him the truth. Share with him the tears of your hurt and pain, and admit to him that you've exhausted every dead-end avenue in trying to heal yourself, only to find your life fragmented worse than before. Open up your heart and life to Jesus right now and ask him to pick up your pieces and mend your broken heart. Look what he offers in exchange. I have come in order that you might have life, life in all its fullness. John chapter 10, verse 10. Can you believe it? In exchange for your broken glass pane, Jesus is offering you life in all its fullness. What all the tranquilizers and alcohol and money in the world cannot give you, Jesus offers with his outstretched, nail-scarred hands, the hands of the Good Shepherd. Jesus, tender shepherd, hear me. Bless thy little lamb tonight. Through the darkness be thou near me. Watch my sleep till morning light. It happened years ago at a grand social function in England. One of the celebrated actors of the land was asked to get up and recite something for the pleasure of the guests that evening. The actor consented, and as he took his place before the gathering, he asked if perchance anybody present might have a personal selection for him to recite. An elderly man towards the back of the room raised his hand and asked, "Could you, sir, please recite the 23rd Psalm?" To which the great actor confidently asserted, "Why, of course I can. And when I am through, I'll invite you, my old friend, to do the same." The elderly man was a bit embarrassed by the proposal, but quietly nodded his assent. Impressively, the skilled actor recited the beloved psalm. His sonorous voice and intonation were without flaw, his cadence measured and grand, and when he was through, the spellbound audience burst into applause. Then it was that the elderly man was motioned to the podium. Making his way slowly toward the front, he finally stood before the evening guests, and there he began to recite the same psalm. His voice was raspy and hardly remarkable, his cadence a bit awkward, and when he finished there was no applause, only silence. Heads were bowed in reverence, and not a few eyes were moist with tears. After several moments of silence, the great actor rose to his feet, and with great emotion spoke again. "My friends, I have reached your eyes and ears tonight, But this man has touched your hearts. The actor paused. The difference is clear. I know the 23rd Psalm, but this man knows the shepherd. Isn't it time that knowing the Good Shepherd became the clear difference in your life too? Your friend, the Good Shepherd, is ready when you are.